Welcome to the Hawks Nest members only video for you in regards to a weekly show we're going to be doing. This is week number 2 of this, and this is going to be ongoing all the way hopefully into the season and forward and expand from there. I want to get some membership benefits out. We've crossed well over 100 members on the channel. It's, I think, about time to try to start to expand some of this content for you, and so we are going to continue to do so today, and each of these shows are going to be centric a little bit around certain topics of discussion, though we'll be definitely having this opened up to the chat as well. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about Geno Smith, because I think that there's been an emerging thing with Geno Smith that's been very impressive on top of so many other things from last year. And it's definitely, I think, worthy of discussion because it's going to be a very keynote point of whether or not he's going to be able to find ultimate success here. Can he get us to a Lombardi? Can he play into his 40s as he's insinuated he would like to do? And he's very much, in my opinion, showed himself to be a lot like the Phoenix. That's why I referenced that in the title, is that the Phoenix was, of course, the mythical bird that would reach an end to its life and then drift to ashes and then be reborn again new. And indeed, is this not the story of Geno Smith and what he has gone through being a former second-round pick? And I want to just tell a quick point of this story to put this all in full context of understanding of this was the guy that was picked in the second round originally who had talent. He put up a very good amount of production out of West Virginia. Him and Tavon Austin were a pretty lethal combo. Had another receiver there who got a cup of coffee in the NFL for a little while too. But he was most certainly a guy that, was very heralded coming out. He wasn't necessarily a top 5 pick or a first round pick. He did drop into the second round, and there's certainly going to be those reasons for that. But nonetheless, he was a guy that was worthy of being picked high in the draft. This isn't like some of these quarterbacks that I might point to, like a Brock Purdy, for instance, out there in San Francisco, where he's just overachiever guy, try hard guy, can't get the, you're just trying to wring every last little bit of physical ability that they have out of them. That's not the case with him. He's got true upper level NFL ability. He's got a plus NFL arm, and he's got good mobility. And last year, of course, you guys know the stats. He broke a couple of Seahawks records, 4,200 yards, 69.8 completion percentage, which was another Seahawks record, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 7.5 yards per completion, 100 rating, 60 QBR, which was definitely his highest in his career. And the rating wasn't, because it was actually the previous year, which part of what we were saying the previous year when he'd come in to work in for Russell was that this is not just a flash here. He's showing you some stuff that looks like it might be sustainable in its play. And indeed, a lot of those metrics from 2021, in 2021, he threw for 68.4 completion percentage. So that was there. He had a 5 touchdown to 1 interception ratio. That was there. That was a couple game stretch. That wasn't just one game coming in at the back end of a half here. He averaged 7.4 yards per attempt in 2021, 7.5 last year. So it's, though we have the 1 year to go off of him truly starting, he's also has the prior year there where he worked in with Russ, and he actually outperformed Russ that year, in my opinion, in how he played the quarterback position. But last year was marvelous. He set all of these high water marks across the board. He was a steadying force. There was times when he was doing what he was doing, and he didn't have everything working in his favor. The offensive line got worse as the year went along. Listening to Chris Sims in particular talk about Geno Smith and his ranking of NFL quarterbacks, he was really pointing to the fact that a spot that doesn't get talked a lot about with that Seahawks offensive line, especially as that year wore along, was how much the pass protection really was failing and just not holding up like it was earlier on in the year. Could have been the rookies on the edge kind of hitting a little bit more of a wall. Certainly the inside started to go down as far as your center and your right guard position was concerned. But whatever the reason essentially was being, it wasn't good. It wasn't helpful. So I'll make sure I'm getting you guys here 1 second. I got this right. So he was still doing what he was doing without that working in his favor. The run game also went backwards. Your running back room got injured all the hell. You were down to even having Kenneth Walker trying to tote the rock out there on a wounded kind of foot. Same thing with DJ Dallas, and I think a high ankle sprain that he was trying to trudge through. And still yet, Geno, even though he wasn't up there statistically, production-wise where he was in the first 12 games, he was still doing what he could. and trying to do all I could, understanding he had so much that was kind of working up against them, including that final San Francisco 49er game in the playoffs, where we saw in the first half he was really finding his groove now, and then the defense just had nothing left in the tank. It could not stop that San Francisco offense for anything, and that ended up being the story really of that particular game. Eventually Geno and the offense failed too, but only after it was that they kind of came to that realization, like Geno had in a couple games the prior year, where we got to score almost every time. It's like Detroit with the scoregami game. Every time I got to go up and score, we're going to lose this game. And that's a lot of pressure, and quarterbacks, offenses, teams are going to feel that over the course of the game if it's going that way. Certainly happened at times under Russell Wilson too, especially in that 2020 season. So he had a great couple of years. NFL's Comeback Player of the Year award. Another great little stat that's come out of recently, the PFF, was that Geno was the best quarterback in the NFL on his deep throws. 77 dropbacks, a 99.3 passing grade. His deep passing yards was 846, which was 8th in the NFL. His deep passing touchdowns was 14th, which was 1st in the NFL. His passer rating was 120.2 on those deeper throws. That's 2nd in the NFL. And his completion percentage at 47.6 was 4th. But overall, PFF had him ranked as the number 1. They said Seattle was not afraid to turn Smith loose, and with good reason. He ranked 1st in big-time throws with 30 and percentage, 47.6, in addition to throwing only 2 interceptions. The deep passing game created many opportunities in 2022. Not only was Seattle 1st in touchdowns, but they also tied for 2nd in first down conversions. DK Metcalf, 87.7, and Tyler Lockett, 92. That's what their respective grades were when Geno was targeting them deep. Combined for 42 targets and 18 catches deep. Seattle drafted Jackson Smith and Jigba, who finished with a 91.9 deep receiving grade in 2021. This group remains healthy. Seattle could finish with another top passing offense in 2023. Notice that little last part that they threw in there, PFF did in their article. Seattle drafted Jackson Smith and Jigba, who finished with a 91.9 receiving deep, not just receiving grade from Ohio State, but a deep receiving grade from Ohio State in 2021 when he put up that 1,500 yards receiving. So Seattle's gotten a guy who can get deep, who can get over the top, and you've now paired that with a quarterback who, it's not the moon balls that we used to see, but it's kind of in a lot of ways just as efficient, just as effective in getting it done. And so you get more months, maybe perhaps like this one.
Just paying extra to have it go through India.
So that's exactly, so they blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, but now they have to send it to India, and then India sends it to Europe.
Did you catch that? Did you see it? We got Devin Witherspoon lined up in the slot. We've got Jackson Smith and Jigba lined up right opposite, rookie on rookie, strength on strength, power on power. And the Seahawks run that old Super Bowl play that Doug Baldwin smoked Champ Bailey on back in the Super Bowl against the Broncos. That little rub route. So it's an excellently run route by Jackson Smith and the inside receiver, who really punishes Witherspoon for not taking the right route. But it's a great little play too, where we get a little taste of hey, Jackson's got maybe a little bit of speed here to him, right? You see him here getting over the top. What a nice little one to play, and that's Geno in the background throwing this. Gotcha, Rook. Gotcha. So now you've added that to the fray now. It's brought in here now to bear on top of what you've already had. And so it's just all that much more exciting about those. This is about this sustaining. This is the big question over Geno. Can he sustain it? Is it possible to keep that going? Is that, and the answer is absolutely, truly yes. I showed you the previous year. Stats were very similar in that small span that he was filling in for Russ to what it was this year on the more of a micro level, because it was only 4 games instead of a full season. But he's also was doing so much in how he commanded the position last year that should lead you to that confidence of success. He wasn't getting lucky against bad defenses. He was making reads. He was controlling the line of scrimmage. He was throwing with anticipation. He wasn't just working Tyler or DK. He was using what was across and available across, all over the board, including at one time really starting to feature Marquise Goodwin. It was just a matter of the fact that his slot guys ended up getting busted up. Eskridge got done for the season. Goodwin got done for the season. And then you were left with Derek Young, a rookie there in the slot. And a lot of the slot is about having a read and understanding and knowledge of those coverages at times and where to sit down and where not to sit down. And it's hard to have a guy like Derek to do that, who I think never really was much of a slot guy probably coming out of college. Probably looked at as more of an outside guy. So he could do that stuff, but you just didn't have the guy to do it anymore. Now you do. The offense should be all that much more effective because of that. But all of that big brain stuff that Geno Smith was applying last year is going to be able to be applied again this season. That's what allowed him to take this step in developing in his growth as a player. That's what's taken him from the ashes back to now soaring high, is that, as I've said, he's done the lonely work. He has mastered his craft. That is what quarterbacking is. That's what any of these positions are. They were a craft to master. You gain and you get older as a player, and you may lose some of your skill, but you're also further mastering the game itself. Like any game, you're going to get better at it. You're going to understand it more. And if you are committed, this is the key part, committed to making yourself better in that way, not just naturally hoping it happens by osmosis, then that's where you can really turn yourself into that dynamic player. There has been so many great quarterbacks in recent years that were great quarterbacks throughout their 20s too, who found this next level, this next gear right around 31, 32, 33 years old. And it may not last all the way to the 40. It may be like Drew Brees or Phillip Rivers or a couple of these guys where you only get a couple of years of it, then it falls off. But there's also a recent track record of these guys having a little bit of a bump up then in that point where they've sort of mastered their craft. It's the one missing place that I would point to was also really a part of the thing that Russell was missing in his game that's not allowed him to take that step into his early 30s and find another level to his career, because he just didn't master that lonely work. I'm not going to say it's who knows the reason. But it is what it is. It stood out to me when he was here. It certainly stood out to me last year in Denver when he was unable to execute that offense at all. You can try to pass it off to a lot of other things, but that's two different stops now. That's different personnel across the board. And he just is really struggling to do the things that most quarterbacks in their early 30s would do, which is what Geno's doing, which I've been in the sport for 10 years. I've been quarterbacking since Pee Wee leagues. I've got this thing kind of mastered in large part to a big degree. But then we get to the question, right? We get to the question. He gets into this offseason. He's comeback player of the year. He earns that big contract. What happens next? Is he satisfied with himself? He got his big deal. Figures, okay, I'm good. I'm going to chill. No, he didn't. The hunger, in fact, has actually been there since exactly the end of the season. There has not been any sort of, I'm going to go spend a month down in Cabo and sort of, think this through. Just read you a couple of little parts here of this Albert Breer article that just came out this week inside of Geno Smith's intense training regimen for his first offseason as Seahawks starter. Before anyone could doubt him again or project him a one-hit wonder, Geno Smith knew where he was headed. His Seahawks had just been routed out of the playoffs 41-17 by the 49ers. And that shiner of a loss would give Smith direction off that soggy Santa Clara grass. He was going back to Seattle and not just to clean out his locker. While his teammates, like members of any other eliminated team, would scatter across the country to start their off seasons, Smith saddled up in the Pacific Northwest with Seahawks assistant strength coach Danny Von Dijic. I don't know how to spell that name. The quarterback jokes now that Van D was probably pretty pissed with him because chances are the coach wanted to go home too. But there was a real purpose to what Smith hoped to accomplish over the last 2 weeks of January. Obviously, there was a contract situation coming up, but I just wanted to stay connected to the guys and see it through, Smith said during a quiet post-practice moment Thursday. I wanted to keep playing until we got to the Super Bowl. I just told myself if I was going to make it to the Super Bowl, I'd still be training all the way up to the last day. I didn't see why this should be different. I just took the approach and just continued to train as if I did have a game and just see things into the future for myself. I'm not going to go through the lengths of this article. I certainly recommend that you do read it. Albert Breer put together a real nice one here. But that quote is more of just emblematic of what we've seen Geno throughout this season. He finished up the year. There was no contract in place, but he's back in the weight room. He's back in there working on things. He's saying, I'm going to treat it like we have another game going forward. It's the tricking of the mind in your head, because as you get those contracts, as you get along in age, the fire's not as much there, right? You've been rewarded. You get a little bit of that back. And yet he was there going, no, I'm going to keep pushing this. And every indication throughout this offseason is that he's continued to push this and done everything in the right manner. Take the contract itself. Here's a deal where Geno could have really held Seattle up over the barrel. Maybe they had a backup plan with Locke they were willing to pivot to. Maybe there was not as many other options for Geno across the board in the NFL. I kind of think somewhere somebody would have stepped forward, though, and even given him a better contract than the one that we gave him. He, in every sense and form here, has given this team a quarterback-friendly contract, quite frankly, beyond the likes of anything that I would have really thought possible when the negotiations were going on and we were hearing the numbers being bandied about up around 35, 40, especially once we saw the Daniel Jones numbers coming out. You go, okay, this is going to get silly. This is going to get unrealistic. But Geno's crafted this deal in a nice way where not only are the numbers spread out beautifully, but then also he's put in the performance bumps where he's got to perform to a certain way to get paid, or he's not getting paid. The money stays back on the books. He's bet back on himself. But he's done a thing, I think, also within doing that where you're sending a signal to the locker room saying, I here as the leader, I as the guy that's going to be the highest paid guy on the team, is putting a contract out there where I'm going to have to prove it. Every year, where I'm not guaranteed anything. Seattle get out of this contract after a year if he goes out and falls on his face. To me, that's a pretty powerful message. And I don't know what the negotiations were in the background or the potential of what they could have accomplished in the background last year and all this, but that was one thing with me that stood out that I sort of find myself nodding with, going, wow. When I heard that he did that, I go, this guy might actually get it. It's the thing where I just don't feel like we could quite get Russell up to the final point of getting this through the final part of his career here. I don't know, even up until now, if he's gotten it. And this isn't to throw shade at Russ. I've said many times, we've just left, I believe here, hopefully, we've just left the diva era of quarterbacks. The Rodgers, the Wilsons, the me guys, that hopefully we're starting to get away from that. But it was the place Russell could never quite get to on that. And some of the new generation is getting it. Mahomes is getting it. He's worked his contract a couple of times. By all measure, it sounds like Jalen Hurts put this contract together with the Eagles in order to allow them to, move some things around as well too. And that's on his first contract. Some of these guys get it. Geno gets it. He's also taken on a leadership angle here, which I think is absolutely monumentally important if you're going to play quarterback. You've got to be the leader. Another little bit of a part of the thing that I don't think was wrestling in full with Russ. I think he was a pretty good leader overall, but I think it's a little bit different in just the tenor and approach that we get with Geno on this. Again, where he's showing you with the money, he's showing you with the work ethic, he's showing you by being in that. It's not in what you're saying. It's not in platitudes. It's not in, trying to talk every single person up on the team in every press conference. It's about just doing the true things that a leader would do. And that's exactly what Geno's done, in my opinion, throughout this offseason. Let's listen to hear a little bit of what DK had to say about, get my little thing prepared here too, about Geno this offseason, as well as far as his leadership is concerned here in a recent interview from him.
The way his demeanor.
Right. I mean, after last year, you go into the offseason wondering if he's going to be our quarterback next year or not. And, once we got the news that he was going to be our quarterback, it's like, all right, we can just pick up from where we left off last year. And that's him being a great leader like he was during the whole season last year. And just his energy and his passion to win and to continue to compete. He's been here since day one of OTAs and since they started off-season workouts. So, he's just been trying to get everybody along and bring everybody, to a team atmosphere to where this is a brotherhood and not just, us coming to work. So that's the one thing that he's trying to instill in the offense.
Very, very important word there at the end that DK said. I hope I didn't cut it off there, but he's trying to instill brotherhood into this team. I think I might have. Geno's trying to instill a brotherhood in this, and this was one of the things that raised my antenna when DK mentioned it, because that was something that the LOB talked a lot about, was brotherhood back in the day. And the brotherhood within that is not just in like, I'm going to have your back, which is the front part of that, but it's also the back half of that, which is that, we're all going to be for each other. There's accountability here. We're all going to be held to a standard here. There's not going to be any shortcut in this or shortcut in that. And I think that's that's the part for me that, again, stands out with him now beyond statistical stuff, beyond can he continue it on the field. It's also this other element that's got to come into being for us at the quarterback position if we're going to look to have this team become elite this next upcoming season, and even on into the future too. But especially, we're going to have our direct eyes, of course, right now this upcoming year. And can we get more out of this year? Can he help to take us there? You're going to have this young roster all across the board. And if you can have the quarterback at that position who does get it, who's not thinking about his brand, who's not thinking about how he can elevate his advertisements, who's not thinking about all the things he wants to go do off the field or go party or go to Milan for a month, right? Who's just all about ball. You only get to play this sport as a professional athlete for so long. And I think it's the one thing that these athletes, as they get to be 35, 36, 37 and find themselves leaving the sport, those that have played a lot of many years, would love to be able to shake their younger self and say, time is finite. Take advantage of this right now. You'll have all the time in the world to sit on your back on a beach, sipping Mai Tais, digging your toes into the sand, retiring far earlier than anyone else out there. But right now, you're going to have to give more than those other average people that are still going to be working the time when you dipping your toes in the sand. If you can give your more now, you'll get so much more out of your career in full. And Geno's had that realization hit him. You can just feel it. And when he talks. Give me a couple other quotes here I want to pull from his press conference recently.
I'm going into my 11th season. Obviously, it's a blessing to even do that, but, who knows when, the clock strikes midnight, right? So I cherish every single opportunity. I cherish every single practice, every single moment out here and in the classroom with my teammates. And so, I think that's where my perspective has kind of changed a little bit, just going from being a young guy to being an older vet. And obviously I still feel young, but there's some things to think about. And so I'm very excited about the future. I think I can do this thing for God willing a long time. So I just want to keep working and try and be better every day.
And indeed, this is, I know it seems like in certain ways, well, Russell used to say those kind of same platitudes as well. And maybe it is that Russell was doing it just as strong. I just didn't get the firmness at the end there that he was as much in as we're feeling like Geno's in. And if we get to success next year, if we can get this team to a conference championship or dare say a Super Bowl, it will be because he has taken on the reins of the quarterback position in every way, shape, and form. By the leadership, by getting them every last bit out of his natural ability he can, by training himself to the utmost, to prepare himself for the utmost for this upcoming season. The realization that there's the mortal end to his football career, and now's the time to strike. That sense of urgency, it's one of the greatest motivators in all of football, especially the NFL. That sense of urgency. Time is running out. I don't know if I'm going to be on the team. And am I going to make the cuts? What do I got to do on the preseason to go do something and make a play? Sometimes that's where those folks that know and sense that situation will rise to the top. They'll realize that moment. And I really feel like Geno's in that point of realizing that's kicked on for him. And it just gets me that much more excited about this team and that much more hopeful about this team being able to find the realm of getting to an elite status next year, which would be completely premature, year 2 of a rebuild. Nonetheless, though, I'm dreaming big partly because of this. I put to you guys, at the forefront of this a couple weeks ago that it's the top 5 scoring offense that you got to attain to this upcoming year in order to have that at the forefront beyond what defense and special teams does. This is going to have to lead the way. And leading the way of that offense is going to have to be Geno Smith. And that sounds, it sounds like something that you just say, well, duh, to, or that this is what needs to happen. But there are places where I don't know that San Francisco is getting the same leadership from its quarterback position right now that we get from Geno here. I don't think it's going to be the same energy in that room where everybody's kind of looking around like, who is going to be the guy? Should I be following him? Do I listen to him? Sam Darnold? Should Sam or Purdy? Purdy? Sure, for sure Purdy. Like he's going to be ready. So okay. So, it's a little bit tougher. It's a little bit tougher. Say nothing of the fact that in Purdy and Lance, you have 2 young guys that are still probably trying to figure out how to be leaders in an NFL locker room. So it's a very big benefit for the Seahawks to be able to have and build upon this upcoming season. And I think will work tremendously for us. And it's good to hear that they're just trying to build on everything. Your DK said, just trying to build exactly what we did. Don't lose any ground. Continue to build up beyond that. Continue to make it more. Last couple of Geno sound bites here I want to play for you again. Just I thought these were pretty impressive from him. And just again, I think illustrate a little bit of the point, kind of what I'm saying.
I still feel like I'm like 21, somewhere around there. But the importance is the mentality. It really is. It comes down to your mental makeup, your mentality. How do you go about every single day? I still wake up. I told Holton today, as I was walking down, I was like, man, you're in the NFL. How does it feel? Because I still wake up and it's still, a dream to me that I get to do this for a living. So I'm very appreciative of that, and I look forward to just coming to work and being with the guys.
Isn't that just how we all of those guys that played football when we were younger, isn't that just the mentality that we had? If I ever got to the NFL, no matter whether you're 8 or whether you're 12, whether you're 17 thinking about it, if I ever got up there, I'd treasure every day. Every day of practice would be a gift from God. Every day I could smack the plates together and lift them would be a divine moment. And we think that when we're younger, and we think that the pros would operate like that. And even some of us now, as we've gotten to be adults and understand that that's not really the way the human nature works in a professional environment, that's where now I can most especially appreciate it when I see it and feel it from a guy like we're feeling from Geno with that particular soundbite. He's looking over at this undrafted rookie. He's like, don't you just, isn't this a beautiful moment? You get to be a professional quarterback in the NFL. You walk out on this beautiful green field and just go sling it. Isn't this wonderful? And I think so few players actually have that spirit inside them on it. And I just feel like it's going to be to help. It's going to be not just a helpful, but a guiding factor for Geno because it's going to lead him in the right direction. As opposed to, let's say, maybe having your ego leading you instead. If you're looking for, because some of you might be going into the no-duh range of this to a degree. But think about it like, well, what about if ego was driving me instead? What was I a quarterback thinking about that? Would there be a difference in the way I played? Would there be a difference in the choices I make on the field and off the field? Just things that I contemplate. One more little soundbite here, and then we'll get over into you guys over here in just a second in the chat. And thank you for listening here today. For all my members, appreciate all of your support. Got one more here I want to play you guys.
By year deal, it seems like, for the most part. Did you do anything for yourself to sort of celebrate or acknowledge having some security and having a long-term deal now?
It's still year by year. I got to take it. I got to look at it like that. It's 1 year at a time for me. And my celebration was, when I picked up my baby and, hugged him up. And then I went to the weight room, got back to work, man. Just got to.
There you go. He's obviously saying, look, it's year by year. There's a sense of urgency. The fire's there. I'm not pulling this stuff out of my behind. This is what he is telling you and is feeling. And I think you can sense that in his actions. It's not just words, but the actions are following it up. I have high hopes that when I initially looked at this offseason and thought about this upcoming year, I went, well, it's probably going to be a 9-10 win year. We're going to probably be right around the area we were last year, even though I would believe that we have taken steps further as a team, forward as a team. Not that we'd backtracked at that point, that we'd gone further ahead. But in part, along with a few other things, the rookies that are coming in that are seemingly are going to be ready to roll. Some of the steps some of the things we're seeing in the background process of this, but a big part of this is also the fact that I can trust in Geno. I can trust the production is going to be replicated. I can trust that the leadership is going to be there. I can trust he's going to help bring guys along. I was listening to another soundbite I didn't include in this clip, but him talking about D. Eskridge. And D. Eskridge is one of the most talked about names you've heard in minicamp. I don't know how many times I've heard people reference him as explosive. Everybody, explosive. I cannot believe how explosive he is. And Geno's been working with them. He's been on the kid. And I go back to that moment last year in a game with him where one of the few times Eskridge was out there as a slot. And Geno pointed to his head, and what he was giving at that point, I believe, was a route correction to the slot receiver there. Essentially telling him, because what he was telling him there was, we're going to have a blitz here by the Chargers. I need you to cut the route in shorter. I need you, instead of it being a 9-8 yard route, you're going to cut it as a 6-7 yard route. Something in the adjustments there, I believe. Because he didn't cut it, the cornerback was able to undercut it because the route took too long and Geno didn't have the time for it to develop as it was going across the field. And then Geno was right there on the sideline right after that play, nuzzled right up next to Eskridge, talking to him, telling him what he needed to have done on that in that move instead. Very easy to bail off a guy like Eskridge in this moment, wouldn't it? If you're Geno, looking at Jackson Smith coming in, you got TK and Tyler, you're like, you had your chance, kid. You can't stay healthy. But sees something in him, sees worthy of working with and trying to get more out of it. That's leadership. Not the easy style of leadership. It's not the flashy style of leadership, but it is leadership. You got a great leader for your quarterback. You got a guy that really, truly gets it and can be not just a leader that's there as far as, I'll show you guys how to be a pro. I'll show you guys how it's done, but actually be the vocal guy who can speak up and people will listen to. And you have to got to earn that locker room to get him to listen to you. Even if you're out of being a rookie. We saw it with Russ, right? Did he ever really, truly earn the whole locker room at any given point in time? Not sure. Maybe. And that's not shade of Russ. It's just, it's hard. It's hard to get everybody in, but it does seem like this team has bought up behind Geno, approves of, wants to see him succeed, understands what he's doing to try to help them. And it hopefully will all work together at the end of the day here to give us a team that surpasses the expectations we could have had for them by far a couple of years ago. And if they take this young roster anywhere this year, it's going to be on the back of this guy's golden arm and him cooking this offense up to being one of the best in the NFL. It's something I was looking at last night as I was doing some research for some videos for actually one of the videos I'm going to be doing on Elite. How the Seahawks can kind of turn to elite, kind of just sort of distilling down what we talked about in those live stream shows into something more just kind of concrete. But you were ninth last year in points scored as an offense, which wasn't bad. But to get into the top 5 state I talked about, again, the top 5 state as an offense, you need to merely score 3 more points this year on average per ball game. And this team would be a top 5 scoring offense versus what they produced last year in full. So it's not a huge high water mark for them to get out there and go and hit that spot. And if they do that at the forefront, they will be setting the stage up for the defense and the special teams to then do their part to bring this team to an elite place. But I think Geno and the offense are going to do their part. Even though the defense has an easier task of getting to just say, let's say top 15 scoring defense, might be a harder run for them to get through. They're going to have an offense scoring points. Other offenses are going to be impelled to try to score points. Might be a tougher road for them to keep that scoring defense down a bit. But the offense, I got a lot of confidence they're going to get out there and get this done. I really do. I appreciate you guys watching today so very much. We're going to keep doing these kind of shows throughout the offseason. And the goal here is to eventually hopefully get this going almost just about like a daily show where we're able to kick these out an hour and a half, in and out a little bit faster than the others. But the goal is to hopefully continue to build on these and do more and more of these kind of shows. I really do, because I just want to make sure I'm giving you guys some good rewards for all your support here for the channel, because I really do appreciate it, and it has helped out this channel tremendously. Megan, how you doing? It's good to see you in the chat. Hope you're all well. Mark Hopcorn, good to see you as well too. Chad Hart says Arizona in the house. We got AZ in here. Spectre 7 says, of all the storylines from the last couple of years, it only makes sense for Geno to go out a Super Bowl winner. Will this into existence? We are to such a great point in this rebuild. We are in a beautiful point in the rebuild, to your point. Yeah, you've got young guys developing early, which means you're going to be able to maximize their rookie deals. You've got the veterans who get it and their heads are on straight and they're all about ball and they're going to try to do everything they can to be at their best. Some of them heading into their prime like a DK Metcalf. And then, you've got the quarterback rolling and ready to go. It would be a great NFL storyline for Geno to continue to ascend here and continue to be this guy that, no one saw coming, providing the NFL with a little bit of that, well, we all know what's going to happen. It's all scripted. Oh, is it all scripted? You figure the NFL scripted up the Geno Smith, the Geno Smith revival to a Super Bowl winner, but I like the willing into existence. I'm with that. I'm completely with that. Jacob Haas says, I'm stuck at work. That's tough, man. I'm sorry to hear that. We started getting lightning storms here. I thought our power might get killed. Megan says, B, when you get a chance, can you please explain what a scoregami is? I've never heard of it. Yes. So a scoregami game is a... Let me reference the actual... in sports, a scoregami, or they call it a portmanteau of score and origami, is a scoring combination that has never happened before in a sport or league's history. The term was originated by sports writer John Boyce for the National Football League and is primarily used in this context. So I can't remember we had last year what it was, 45-41. Megan, something along that line was what the score was on the Detroit game. So that was a score that had never been achieved in NFL history. It's like if we went out and there was an NFL game where it was, I imagine, 65-64. There's probably never been a game in NFL history that's six. That'd be a scoreagami game too. That's never occurred before. It's fun to say it though. And it sounds deep, doesn't it? Megan says, after seeing that clip, I'm loving JSN more and more. Sweet route. He shows off that lateral ability that makes him really run first before he's getting to the straight line. He's got to get lateral, and he's challenging Devon in that respect. Devon's got it tough because it's not just Jackson running the good route. It's also that outside receiver kind of cutting Jackson off almost on a rub route. But a beautiful route by Jackson. Just wonderful. Megan says, do you think Russ didn't do the lonely work like Geno did due to ego? I think Russ certainly is a guy that's willing to work hard, but I think that he's diversified himself too much over the years. And I think that when it comes to playing the quarterback position and being a master of that, to believe that you can go be a master of that, and then I'll be a neuroscientist over here, and then I'll be a brand maker over here, and then I'm going to go do this over there, and I'll just compartmentalize every part of my day into these little pockets of groups that I'll concentrate on. I think that you can eventually not find yourself able to have put enough time into doing something excellently at that point. Still can do it functionally, still can do some of the things you maybe once did as it, but you're not growing your game at that point. It's more sitting into stagnation. I think the trick here, Megan, is that he partly did this also because he wasn't seeing a downward return on the results for not adopting that lonely work. It's like, I don't have to play by the same rules of everybody else because I'm cooking without having to. I got the deep moon ball. I got the ability to scramble, but then he loses the ability to scramble and he can't fall back on those other skills. It's a little bit like the old, what was it? The grasshopper and the ant, right? Isn't it the ants collecting all the food for the winter? And the grasshopper's like, there's food everywhere. I can jump to reach anything I want to eat, right? And then suddenly it hits winter. It's like, oh, it's the winter of your career now, Russ. You don't have that to go back. Well, ant, will you want to let me inside? Let me in on some of that food? No, it's too late. Too late. Megan says, I think the hungrier has been there for Geno because he knows how damn lucky he is to have another chance. Exactly. I don't soup it up to anything else, but I think he's just gotten it. I think just in a way that I don't think all athletes always get. And that's why that's why it's worthy, I think, of mentioning on this show and to look forward into this next year, is that this is something that is in its own right special and unique in the NFL, I think. Nicholas Newton, how you doing, man? It's good to see you. V-Ray in the house. Hello, V-Ray. So St. Geno, thank you. Go Hawks, St. Geno indeed. He is the man. He is the man. So stoked for this guy this next year. I think he's going to set a couple more Seahawks records this season. Might even get that completion percentage fully up into 70%. Nick, it's good to see you though, V-Ray. Nicholas says, I think the former quarterbacks is run by his own ego and always has been. Yeah. I think it's grown with time too. I don't think Russ started there, and I think I try to have sympathy a little bit for Russ in this respect of things because, this is the same thing that happens to actors and rock stars. And, you get so supremely famous, kind of so quickly all of a sudden, and it just sends you on the rocket ship, and it's going to skew people's heads a little bit. And not everybody's, put together to be able to, deal with that a little bit, but it doesn't change the bottom line either. And that it was being held back a little bit. Nicholas says, I'll throw shade, that trash all day, Brandon. Can't stand that guy ever. John Stillwell has been celebrating 8 long good months as a member of this channel. I'm sure for much longer than that. Probably just shut you off one time. And John was gifting out memberships last night on the live stream, which was so kind of him. I still think we're going to eventually get that cap show in, John. There's a cap show coming, man. We just got to figure out the angle on it to get it exciting. He says, I think Geno gets it. We are in good shape at the quarterback position. We really are. I think that this might not have been something I had to worry about 20 years ago as much as my quarterback, but it's become something in the modern iteration of the NFL that you've got to take into account. Is your quarterback completely set and understanding on what time of day it is and what he needs to do right now? That the career is finite. that these years are going to go by very fast that you play in the NFL, and that you're going to live way more of your life having not been an NFL player than you will have been playing as an NFL player. And so maybe that should inform you and tell you, I got to do everything I can do right now. And that's that get it part, John. That's that part that only a 50-year-old Geno Smith would be able to tell a 32-year-old Geno Smith. But yet he seemingly has kind of realized it a couple of decades ahead of time. It's wonderful. Nicholas says, my grandmother always asked me why I hated him so much. I'd always tell her because he's fake as an F and a clown, never a team player. There's definitely a few that have that sentiment, and I'm sure there's a couple in the locker room, that do have that sentiment too, Nicholas. He's a confusing guy for me in certain respects of things on it, and it still is very much, from my perspective, hard at times to get a full read, on what makes Russell Wilson kind of really tick at the end of the day. Is it just pure ego rolling, or is it just it's that people are complicated and there's some complicated things going on here with him. It's maybe a bit of both, but whatever it may be, I think it was inhibiting him as a quarterback as he was now leaving his prime, and the physical abilities were starting to, diminish, and he didn't have necessarily an answer, because that answer only comes from the same place that Geno Smith derived it, which is sitting in those cold, dark rooms in the middle of the night. Rewind, play. Rewind, play. Rewind, play. Over and over and over again. Nothing exciting about it. You can't put it on your Instagram story, but it will make you better. Ain't a player I heard yet in the modern age talk about watching film saying it didn't have no use. So there isn't anything but good that comes from it when you determine that you're going to just dive into the film and make yourself a complete savant when it comes to the film, and knowing what you're seeing, and knowing what the formations are, and knowing what a team's doing, and knowing how they're built. It's one thing to kind of casually watch film. It's another thing that's part of that master of the position thing. It's also how to watch film, how to read film, how to get better understanding of what you're seeing. That's part of the thing that Geno was getting in his stops, for instance, with Phillip Rivers, who's a master of beating the blitz. Why was Phillip Rivers a master of beating the blitz? Because the man couldn't move in 2 steps in any direction for very long without just about falling over. Giraffe on skates. So by necessity, he had to be a master of beating the blitz. And Geno's referenced the fact that he taught him some things on how to better go after that stuff. But meanwhile, Geno's able to hit 20 miles per hour on the gun. He can get up there and actually move a little bit. So you get the Phillip Rivers mind in the Geno body. Like that movie Vice Versa, right? Megan says, got the 7 on today. So proud to wear it. Hell yeah, Megan. Hell yeah. He's definitely doing the number justice. The number 7 quarterbacks in Seahawks history are pretty good, I think, so far. At least the ones that played a lot. And Jacob Haas, I've never really hated or disliked Russ now that he wanted... sorry, Jacob, I had a burp come up there. Just saying. I've never really hated or disliked Russ now that he wanted John and Pete fired. Made me upset. And saying he didn't want to trade BS, then I knew he doesn't want to win, just wants stats. I think that's something that's been a little bit more when I look at my view of Russ 3 years ago versus look at now. I often think about like, man, have I been hard in my view of getting downward on him and looking at him through a lens of, kind of knocking down a little bit of the time here with him and that in your view of him with certain things. And I think, in the way he left, there's some fans that kind of didn't look at it the same way, but I think I do find myself, Jacob, aligned a little bit closer to where you're landing on this one. Where you go, you're asking for a trade a year out just after you had signed a new contract. You knew that was going to destroy the team from a cap standpoint and really not be even sustainable for them to pull that trade off. It would have been a record-breaking amount of dead cap hit for you to sustain in order to move him that offseason. Then you submit the 4 list of teams. Then you talk about wanting player personnel control. Then you want to talk about having coaching personnel control. Then we hear about you trying to fire John and Pete. And then when you go to this Denver place and you're wanting offices and parking spaces and you're having Denver kind of royalty like Shannon Sharp calling you out publicly on, national TV or nationally speaking. I mean, there's some stuff here that's like, this isn't just Russ being misunderstood anymore kind of thing, which is a little bit what of his backers would say with this stuff. It's like, there's some smoke here to this fire. which is I can't always pinpoint what it is with them on it. Maybe it's just the fakery stuff. Maybe it is just that it's the ego stuff. I don't have a firm, real final opinion on it really at this point, but it didn't help our team. And it is one of those factors that at the end of the day was inhibiting us. Wasn't in the only one, certainly the drafting and how they spent their money and how they built a team. Those would be other combinations of factors for why when we went from 2015 to 2020, there really wasn't much success. But also another part of that is the Russell factor here too, for the good and the bad that he brought. It wasn't all just the good. There's also with that then the bad in there too. John Stillwell coming in with a $20 donation. John, thank you so very much for that donation. Very, very, very kind of you, man. Really appreciate it as well, man. All the memberships you subbed out last night. I know we'll have a few people in here watching the show here, and this will be a good way for them to get a good taste of what we're going to be trying to supply here in the future here for members of the channel. He says, Geno has an interesting family background and some high-level non-football interests, and I think that's a good stuff. I think it's good stuff too. I heard he was speaking about, John, that he did have, I think, a cousin that's like one of the more number one ranked prospects coming out in the country, supposedly. But yeah, no, he's got a cool background to him. He's not had the easy path in front of him. Those are always, to me, John, good, easier guys to root for in general, right? We all like an underdog. We all like the guy that's been, humbled and now has to, inch by inch work his way back to eventually pull himself back up off his feet. And then you want to celebrate that. I mean, this is Greek tragedy stuff, going back to the old tales of what originally captured humankind when they started thinking about these stories and stuff. So he's an interesting guy. I don't know as much about the non-family stuff as much you might on that, but he definitely is well put together. You can tell the guy's just put together right. You can feel when the guy's speaking in platitudes, can't you, John? And he's talking and, got to do better. Just got to come together as a team. Just got to work hard. Or you can hear him speaking and referencing specific things, and not being so generalized in his approach and everything being a one fit all in every press conference. And this is not just all about Russ, by the way. This is quarterbacks in general, not giving you information and just giving you a lot of non-soundbite talk. They speak for 10 minutes, but tell you nothing. And Geno tells you stuff when he speaks. He's getting something across. There's a purposefulness in his approach and what he's trying to get through. And I don't think it just doesn't feel fake to me like I have felt with other quarterbacks on that. But yeah, non-football interest is good too, man. Have a little bit of a diversified background in that respect of things. Can't hurt. And John, thank you for the $20 donation, man. All of what you do for the channel. You're amazing, bro. I hope you're not locking horns too hard today or this week any longer with the IRS. No more of that. Thank you, man. I'm telling you, we got to figure out this cap show. Jacob says he's Denver's problem now. That's true. Megan says, I have heard similar from the vets in the Kraken 2B. They're just happy to be in the NHL and so grateful. It is what you'd hope. These guys are multimillionaires and, people are fawning over them and social media being fawned over. And I think that's very easy. And I don't think it's necessarily any great, horrible thing if you find yourself trapped into that, my stuff don't stink. I'm the lead character in a movie. Look at me, look at me, look at me. Aren't I fantastic? Look at me. I think that it is human nature to slide into that when you find yourself exposed to it for a lot. But I think the better you can be to kind of pull back from that and stay with that, like that being into that, leaning into it doesn't seem to help people. As hard as it is not to lean into it, it doesn't seem to. Look at some of these actors after 30 years of being stars, It's like they're out of touch with reality. There's no longer any feet anywhere near the ground. Nick Craig has been a member for 1 month. Thank you so much for that membership, Nick. I appreciate you. He says, in my opinion, Geno is only in his prime right now. He's 31 and in great shape. I think he's a few years left and he's got more in the tank than you think. I agree. No, I definitely think he has a potential of being able to play more years. Can he get to 40? I don't know. Can he get to 36, 37, still playing a really good level? Yeah, I think he can. Number one, because the guys that fall off younger once they get out the end of their prime, or you see them really fall hard. Let's take a guy like Drew Brees, who really started to age fast after 34, right? You just started to really feel like he couldn't push the ball up the field any longer. Some of that comes from the fact that Drew Brees is 5'11" and wasn't a guy gifted with the most strongest natural arm in the first place. Part of why he was playing in a dome, for his whole career that helped him out. But when he then lost arm strength, because he also wasn't really the most mobile of guys, then it was really like they had to kind of manufacture the offense around him a little bit. I don't think you're going to have to do the same for Geno, because he can be more like those guys who's got an upper level arm right now. And if it loses a little bit, it will still be a very strong arm. And he's got enough mobility now where even if he loses mobility, he still can move a little bit around out there, at least to be, somewhat effective. So I think he can as well. And let's not take away too, Nick, from I think it's a sturdy point as well, that he hasn't played a lot of football. There has not been any torn ACL, no torn Achilles, no dislodged tendon from the bone. He's had some minor stuff that he's gone through his career here and there. But he's not had anything that's been, something that's going to cause a chronic issue with him, or that he doesn't have a really probably relatively fresh body for being 31 years old. And I think that's got to give us a little bit more hope if we look at him. Can he play to 36? Can he play to 37? Can he play to 38? Can he be a real true long-term guy here? I think he can, Nick. I'm not putting any ceiling on him as far as where how far he can go, how long he can go, especially if he's going to be committed as he's shown himself to be. Nicholas, I saw it coming after his second year. You're definitely up ahead of it on me than I was. Took me a little while. Jacob says, I know they're not going to blame Sean if Russ fails. No. And I don't know if locally that would be the case, but I'll guarantee this, Jacob, ownership is not going to make that the case. This was a big part of what took so long, I think, for Sean to get there, was he was going to get to run and guide the ship going forward, and that didn't mean that he was necessarily married to keeping the Russell Wilson experiment alive and well. The big key on this is that backup quarterback that he spent 2 years and $10 million on. That was the big deal that stood out to me, that was like, oh, okay. You'll try to fix this with Russ, but you've got somebody else there with Russ isn't executing your offense. You're not going to be like, well, it's okay, Russ. We'll just stick at it. We'll just keep it. You'll yank Russ up and you'll throw the backup in there. I think Russ is going to do whatever he can. He's got more urgency, a fire lit under him like never before in his career. I can't help but think it's going to bring about him playing at his best and probably sticking to the line that Sean Payton's dictating, because Payton's got the gravitas, unlike Hackett, to actually force Russ to toe that line. But Sean's not suffering any of that blame in there if it goes wrong. And I think he'll move very quickly off Russ if it doesn't go right. Megan says, with Russ, I am reminded of a phrase a Polish friend uses all the time. Not my circus, not my monkeys. I love that saying. I got to steal that. That's wonderful. John says, it's about the process, not the goal. Wonderfully put, John. Wonderfully put. And that's a little bit of what's been lost, right, in the previous. But what doesn't feel lost here? Commit to that grind. Commit to that point. Understand that with that grind will come the improvements. But it's not that easy returns. It's not like if you're 250 and you're trying to shave yourself down to 200 pounds, you can see those easy pounds melting off you with just a little couple hike walks every couple times a week, right? It's that hard work where you're just getting up and grinding like we're hearing Geno do. And that's what eventually gets you better. But that kind of work takes much longer to get the fruits of it. But it's the commitment to the process, John. It's that commitment to say, I do this hard now. And 44, 45-year-old Geno Smith sits back and he's like, you did it. You did everything you could. You swung as hard as you could. You lifted as hard as you could. You ran as hard as you could. You got as smart as you could on the film. No regrets. No, I bet Russ is going to have some regrets when he looks back at his prime. I mean, there's going to be some times he's going to look back on that in the post-career going, maybe that year I didn't need to go to Venice for 4 weeks. Maybe that wasn't a necessity. Maybe I could have held off on that trip. I don't think Geno's going to be saying the same thing. Jacob says, during his last years here, it looked like Russ was off, like his awareness or sacks got lost, and it was looking for this deep shot every time and not taking what was there. It was odd. I think Denver was certainly experiencing some of the same. Jacob, people on the channel would say that he took a hit against either the Cardinals or the Bills game. There was some kind of hit that changed Russ, that he wasn't the same Russ after that hit. I don't know if I'm with that camp of people that believe that, but that was a common sentiment out there that I did hear mention, was that he just doesn't look the same after that hit. Something got rattled loose. But I do think that a big part of it was, like you say, where he got rewarded in that 2020 season for all of those deep shots. He was having such good success early on where every time he threw it deep, it felt like he was getting caught, that it just built bad habits over the course of the year. And he started to bail out on just functioning the offense normally because he was getting so much success by not doing so. And it's a fine line between, when do I take some deep shots and when do I keep myself on time in this offense and just try to move the ball up the football field. And whichever it was, the big hit or just the falling in love with the deep ball because of the 2020 early success, if he was already starting to drift in that manner, it certainly just sent the ball straight down the hill with like a strong kick at that point, didn't it? William Leonard, how you doing, man? It's good to see you. John Holland, hello, hello, hello. Appreciate you guys jumping on in the stream tonight. I hope you're having a great night. Brian Meyer says, Mr. B, great subject for a stream. I got to watch my notifications better. Go Hawks. I'll try to too, Brian. I'm going to I'll post it up on, of course, you should get the notifications when it goes to members, but I'll always post it to the community channel as well, community post for the members on these when I do them. So I'll try to also have the double up on the notes that send out to you guys just in case one slips through, because YouTube's sometimes weird with them. You can have them on, they don't go, and others you don't go. But I want to talk about this one. I was thinking about it, man. I just felt like Geno has just really impressed me this offseason. And I've been watching him. What is he going to do, the Russ thing? Are we going to start to feel the head just go, But no, same size head. Completely still humble. Completely working hard. Gets it. It's good to see you, Brian. Tommy says, what? Oh, Tommy, I missed your other thing here. Tommy says, yes, Eskridge is explosive. If he gets touched on the field, he could literally explode into pieces. Yeah, very true. Very true. Tommy says, what would have happened had the Hawks drafted Geno out of college instead of the dumpster fire Jets? This is the problem with the draft. Promising quarterbacks go to lousy teams. I think it's a very good point. Number one, Tommy. It's an absolutely great point. And it's one that the way we look at quarterbacks in this modern age, and this is probably going to be worthy of its own show at some point, be it on the members or just on the regular channel. But the way that we look at quarterbacks has got to change in the modern age. I feel like we got to look at it different, and not just from the standpoint of what makes a good quarterback great, what makes a quarterback perform at a high level, but also with these quarterbacks that don't necessarily succeed in their first instance. Should we maybe start to build up a little bit more of an attempt to understand why it didn't go right? That maybe it was something that was outside of their control, and that it's not just all on them suddenly not being good enough or they didn't develop well enough, especially when it comes in the circumstance, Tommy, of you taking a rookie quarterback and immediately throwing him into the deep end, going, swim. You didn't teach me. You didn't teach me how to do this, though. We'll teach you along the way. Just kick your arms a little bit. I don't think I can do this. Well, I guess you suck. We'll just go move on to the next one. I'm going to die. Yeah, that's too bad. There's always another one around the corner, though. That kind of mentality of just quickly throw it away, disposable. Everything's a styrofoam cup when it comes to the quarterback position. I think the NFL would be smart to start to move away from that a little bit more and start to try to take into account the circumstances involved, be more open to the second chances. Be more open to maybe even the third chances if the guy in the first two stops has been bad places and places that he is not being set up to succeed. And again, part of this comes back to my other stuff with the quarterback position is not just derived from the QB playing like Superman, and it's all a measurement of where's his Superman scale? Is he 97% Superman? Is he 96%? And that will fully determine the success of your offense. Rather, the supporting cast of the offense around him will help to elevate that Superman score. Yes, having guys certainly separate in talent and be better than others, that will exist and that will impact it. But this other thing is being forgotten about in lieu of how talented is he? How much can he sling the rock? How can he run around and get you a bunch of yards? Just the different views of it a little bit. But a fine point, Tommy. A fine point. John Holland says, Geno is an unselfish, classy guy. Russ would talk the talk. Geno is walking the walk. Wonderfully put. You guys got some great comments here in the chat tonight. I can't add to it any more than that, John. I mean, he is walking the walk 100%. And it's what I think it presses you. It's pressing me as well. You can get to a certain age, I think, man, woman, whatever. Then you get to an age where you get some wisdom under your belt. You start to hear people talk and you start to be through these rodeos a few times. And, you can see certain things clear for what they are and what they aren't. And there's nothing I've sensed within what Geno's done or gone about his business here that hasn't been just completely true in what he's trying to accomplish, pure in what he's trying to accomplish. And that's what this game's about. That's why we do these live streams. That's why they do those games. That's why they do those training camps. That's why we try to build these teams up. That's why we try to keep our eyes up on that Lombardi trophy. That's what this is all about. We can talk all we want about just being happy to be here. That's part of that. That's part of that approach that I spurn against. We're here for the ultimate prize. Doesn't mean every season's a failure if you don't get there, but that's what the goal is. That's what we're trying to get to. And like I started at the top on this, it might seem like the no-brainer, Brandon. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. I don't know that all quarterbacks, all teams, all organizations quite get it in that manner. There's other things that influence them that come over the top of that, especially when it comes to the quarterback position. Megan says, so scoregami's not just for the Hawks, but the whole league? Yeah, for the whole league. And any sport, Megan. Be like baseball having a score of 45 to 39. It's never had that be a scoregami, right? Is it just you now? I thought it was all sports it could happen in. Mr. Dog, did you hear Derek Hall says he's going to be an outside linebacker and not an edge rush? Well, an outside linebacker, Mr. Dog, is an edge. So I'm a little confused. It's good to see you in here, man. But an outside linebacker is an edge in a 3-4 defense. He's not going to be an outside linebacker in the 4-3. He's not going to be a Will or a Sam in the 4-3 defense. So he'll be still coming off the edge. I caught the Senior Bowl rep. I got to show you guys. Maybe on the next show I'll show it. Derek Hall just on one of these Senior Bowl reps was just so impressive. Just throws this guy like he's so strong. He's so freakishly strong, and he's got a good long arm bull rush. But I did hear the Derek Hall interview, Mr. Dog. It was a good interview. I was really impressed. Part that jumped out to me was he was talking about his lungs and how they were so slow to develop, and even slow to develop through high school, start of college. That he was like, yeah, I've got like 19-year-old lungs, but they're just going to keep getting better or something, like he's being held back by the capacity of his lungs, and look out once it fully opens up all the way. But it sounds like he's not had to use his inhaler or anything like that in a long period of time, and so. But it was a good interview. I liked what I heard from him. How about him spending his NIL money to get water down there. Get clean water down to areas, get some pallets of water down to some clean areas. Just seems like all these guys just seem good guys to root for, easy guys to root for. Megan says the grasshopper in the air. Is that what it was? My old brain turned the hare into, we're not the grasshopper. I don't know. It's that story. Okay, Kitty, here's your place. That's where you go. John says Michael Robinson believes summed Russell Wilson up one time, saying he was so optimistic that he couldn't tell when things weren't working. That's a great way of Michael Robinson putting that. And I would agree with him. It's part of why I've also said because I think a little bit of what you're putting in that, John, too, is a little bit of that. It's not just the pure, okay, kid, I need you up here. This is not going to work. It's not just the pure ego thing either that's involved here. That is a big part of it, but it's complicated, right? And it's also part of that neutral mindset that he adopted, and don't dwell on the negative and only keep yourself positive. And, life is really, when it comes down to it, whether it's anything you want to apply to, working out, eating sugar, whatever else, you take anything to an extreme edge of it, and it's probably not going to bear out the best results for you, and that going extreme on anything is going to just not the right path. And I think he did kind of go in that extreme way with that mindset stuff. And that does take you out of a place of, give this a little more consideration than just glossing over it because you've decided it's negative and you don't want to dwell on negative things. Turn it over in your head, live in it for a moment. So you might find a little bit of a better answer rather than, let's go. Sometimes guys need a little bit more than that, especially when you're the leader. Mark Harpercorn says, okay, I'm out. The Y-Files are coming on soon. I love that Y-Files, Mark. It's a great channel. He does some really good work. I love how he does it too, where he puts a lot of the stuff down to where they kind of distill things out to get some of the BS away from some of that stuff, to where you can get some of the truth of it out. It's wonderful. Just wonderful. Sector 7, I can't spell it, but I feel like the new rookie center is going to help Geno a ton. I freaking love his name too. Oh, he will, Spectre 7, because I think he's going to be able to help the line calls, especially from the jump, because he's been doing that stuff. He was doing it at Michigan. He's had so much time he's played going back to Virginia, the center position. He's going to slide in and be able to pick those calls up, I think, very, very, very fast. It's the part that I loved about Oluwatimi is you get a very pure fit for the scheme as far as the mobility and hitting the blocks you need to have hit. But then you also get the guy that's got the big brain, who's got a lot of starting experience, who's going to be ready to roll from day one. It's why I have put him out there, Spectre 7, as the guy that is going to start for you day one. I think he overtakes Evan Brown. John says Russell started reading the paper too much. I think he probably did too. And there was a whole thing early on in his career where he's underrated. And then it was like probably he was hearing all these people going, you're so underrated, man. You're awesome. And it's just, shh. You're just there's nothing like, you're like the most mobile quarterback. Shh. Got to take out that pin every once in a while and let out a little bit of that air, a little bit of that hot air. William Leonard, thank you for being a Hawks Nest member for 14 long months. Appreciate all of that support, man. This is a bit off topic, but do you think we're betting on our opponent's run game being weak? Your Cameron video has me concerned for the D-line. The team seems to have a philosophy based upon Schneider's comments in regards to his lack of being flustered by anything going on down there on the defensive line, in consideration of that they've not necessarily stacked it with a lot of talent, that it's not something they can't just go out there and fill up in other ways. Like I can go sign a guy off the street. So they seem to have some kind of confidence in it that they can address this and get somebody functional out there with a relative amount of ease. I, like you, would be more in the concerned camp and not believing as much that's as easy to go out there and pull that off. I don't know if you noticed, I feel like I got a little bit, there was like 3 guys that all like bumped up like over the course of the video of like a 12-hour period. They like bumped in the same comment posted over and over, including one was named Cameron Young. So I wondered too, I've got to start to realize in some of these videos I post to these kids that it is going to get back to them watching it probably pretty quick. And I realized it last year when Tariq Woolen was commenting from his YouTube channel on the day he was drafted on my channel. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I am showing up in different places. I don't sometimes remember I'm going to be showing up, because I went pretty hard on him, William, and I probably could have gone softer a little bit. The thing I was trying to do was just make sure that I'm driving home my point and not looking like I was just shading the kid for shading purposes, and making sure I feel like if I've got to present a case of a player being good or exciting as a player, I don't have to show you as much. I can be like, it's there, I see it, take a moment. But if I'm going to say it's going to be bad or there's things that I worry about, I'll show more of it. The one part I could have been wrong on, William, and maybe the one place that is, of course, the silver lining is that those same comments were all the same about the slanting on the Cameron Young video. And they were mentioning that they just felt a lot of these plays I was showing, it was him just running himself, because as a slanting, you go from one guy down to the next as the down blocker, and so you're not getting upfield. You're going laterally down the line, and there was a little bit of that on the video, but it doesn't explain all of it to me. And when you come down to slanting versus gap and a halving, there's a lot of similarities between those things at times. Which there's some of that's going to require him to read things on the fly and make an adjustment, not just go firing like a bat out of hell down the line of scrimmage laterally with no real place to go, which is where a lot of those snaps look. But maybe that was a spot, William, that I could have been wrong on in my evaluation of him, and that it's the Mississippi slanting defense that's the whole reason that his tape didn't look better, and once you put him in our defense, which will be a gap and a half defense, that now he'll suddenly look great. I don't, man. I could be wrong about stuff, so it's possible. It is possible. And this kid maybe just won, as I said on that video, I could have just been missing the boat on him, but I think they feel like they can make a trade or signing here, William, if they get into the training camp and they find that it's not good enough. I wouldn't have had that kind of approach if I was them with it, but this also seems to be ever evolving philosophy as it concerns the defensive line, especially with this new brand of defense that they look at, I think, differently than they looked at with the 4-3 defense, where that front four personnel was vital that they were talented and strong all the way through. John says the Hawks often wait until the last cut to fill the middle of the D-line. Could happen again this year. I agree. Yeah. That's really the answer, I think, at the end of the day, is that it's whether it's a cut or a trade, that's what they're looking at. It's part of also why, William, I put that last video out that Seattle would make as part of their road to getting elite. Top 5 scoring offense, top 15 scoring defense, top 3 special teams unit, and the final one was bringing in a final trade, signing whatever they do to help round out that defensive line. And that is the move that does still remain to be made, and one that I expect to be made. Tom Eden says, this is what makes me so mad about Russ. Why it feels kind of fraudulent, though. I think he used to be this way. He used to say the separation is in the preparation, but he didn't prepare. That's the little bit of the, I'm going to tell you it. It's a little bit, the signs are there. You guys, everyone in life's been lied to, right? We've been lied to, and you got people that sell it on thick, and they tend to be the guys that are the ones that are going to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and they'll tell you everything. Walken's got this great line in True Romance. You're telling me everything, but you're saying nothing, and it's the truth. They'll tell you everything, but they're saying nothing. And, he's telling you all the things you want to hear. This is the part that will drive you crazy. If I'm having, and this is why I think probably drove him crazy with some of his teammates. I have an interaction with you, and I'm talking to, not a human being, but I'm talking to a guy who's processing the right appropriate response to every interaction to make sure that it just be a human being with me here. Don't give me what you think I want to hear. Give me some truth from time to time on things. It's hard to get out of him. I think he's just got kind of that wall up, and you're not pulling it down. William, and trade can address the D-line. Who would we give up from our roster? Well, I think certainly the Noah Fant kind of trade would be one that stood out to me, William, as one that you could do. Darrell Taylor is a guy that you could include in a trade. Uchenna Nwosu is a guy that you could include in a trade. You've got, William, the extra 3rd-round pick from Denver in next year's draft that you got out of this last draft that you move back in the 4th round. So there's a couple different ways you could do it from that standpoint. You could sign a guy to a contract extension, move money around. So I don't even know if you'd have to necessarily give up a guy on your roster. They could choose a couple of different ways to make it happen. Hell, you could move Noah Fant's contract to $1 million and then turn the rest of it into $5 million of voidable money on next year's cap. Boom! You just created $5 million of cap space. And you didn't have to move anybody. John Stillwell's freaking out right now as I say that. I know he hates my... I feel John's cringe from here on that one. Tommy says, receiver or cornerback is the obvious loaded spots if we were to trade players. Yeah. Cornerback's another place you could do, for sure. Receiver would be a bit harder to pull probably any value from. John, is this the happiest team you've ever seen? I can hardly believe my eyes sometimes. Definitely. Everyone seems in that, it just seems like just kind of the right mood that you want off your team. Hungry, bright, happy, guys working hard, all about ball. Now, you hear the vets talk about the rookies. They're asking all the right questions according to them. They seem hungry to learn, hungry to prove themselves. It is just, it is public relations talks at the interviews, but it is, there's other times where you hear these kind of things and you go, oof, I don't want to hear about that. Ugh, that's not a good thing to take away from, right? So it's good when you don't get those things, John says, we haven't put a lot of money into the interior D-line since I've been watching. Brandon Mabane. Yeah, with Brandon, you had to let him go because you're paying other guys money. And you had to kind of make your choice on that. They chose Cliff Averill. They chose Michael Bennett. You chose a couple other guys within that you decide to kind of pay. And then that was also when Russell Wilson, this is the thing with John, the Wilson contract starts to kick in. You start to have to move off from some of these guys, and it's, to me, no coincidence. This is the tough part about paying a contract to these quarterbacks that's just such at a high dollar amount. But yeah, it's been a little while since we've really found a way to do a lot for the defensive line. It's been one that drove me crazy in the late 4-3 days, John, because the team would just flat refuse at times to address it in the manner in which it needed to be addressed. You'd make one or two signings, and then you'd call that a day. Say, okay, we're good. We're done at this point. We've done our part. Sector 7, thank you for the $7 donation. I do appreciate it. And hope you're having a great night out there. You guys are very kind. It says, classic Russ will never get old. Well, obviously we have a lot of great guys. Obviously, motivated, poised, obviously just getting better one day at a time, just doing what we can, just getting out there, giving our best, giving our all, getting a little bit better, trying to be greatness, looking for it, trying to do it. I just never felt it with him. He's saying it, but I just didn't feel it with that there's a passion behind it. I know he's passionate about the sport, but it was always just being said as something that this is what you want me to say. So I'll say this thing that you want me to say, and I'll just keep repeating it. Thank you, Sector 7, for the donation, man. I agree with you, man. It was a classic Russ, some of those interviews where it's like, man, can you just give us something? Just a little bit. You've been in the league 7 years. Why are you still talking like a rookie that's trying to protect himself because the vets are going to rib him if he says the wrong thing? John Stillwell with another $20 donation. John, thank you so very much, man. So kind of you, brother. Coming in with a big donos. And you dropped the freaking 10 subs last night. You're awesome. He says, Pete said the one thing Geno needed to improve on was his temper and being able to forget a bad play and move on. Indeed, that's something I've heard as well. And we go back to that moment, John, don't we, in the San Diego game where Geno's not agreeing with the call in the field and he's getting super angry. And Pete comes out there and does the move, just settle it down. And it was a wonderful moment out of last year because everything's kind of starting to get chaotic in that moment. Geno hates the fact the call's not made. It's a 3rd down and 9. And Coach Carroll steps 5 feet out onto the field, gives him the calm motion. Geno looks over at him, seems to chill out, comes right back out on the next play and throws a laser beam to Tyler Lockett for a 1st down. And the beautiful thing on that is you have a coach there that you can see is able to calm down his quarterback. Some of these interactions at times between coach and quarterback, when the quarterback gets up into that place, you can't tell him nothing. Even going back at times to 80s tapes. I don't know if you remember, John, going and seeing Bill Parcells and Phil Simms going back at it. But they would have their fights. Mike Ditka would have his fights with McMahon and whatnot. Some of these coaches don't always have that kind of ability to have the sway over the QB in that manner. But it's something that you could see where Geno might need to, you don't want emotional at quarterback. You're trying to stay in that steady level state of things. But I love the passion and fire too. That's the part of it that does come with that as well, is that, okay, the temper, but you're getting a lot of passion and fire there also from the position. You're getting a guy that cares. You're getting a guy competitive as hell, and that's fighting it out. I like that in my quarterback. I like that that's the thing that we have to tap our brake a bit with him on. Rather than trying to have to hit the gas, John, to get him come on, are you awake in there? Come on, give me something, give me a little bit of fire, But yeah. I think too, some of that, John, is he knew last year, especially his room for error was so limited, Geno, I don't know if I'm going to get another starting job next year. I don't know if this is my one true opportunity in NFL here to make go a go. And then if he got a bad call that went against him that was outside of his control or something that didn't happen right and he did everything right, like an adjustment that he called for Eskridge that Eskridge didn't adhere to, then that might send you over because you're like, God, I don't got another chance at this. This is my time right now and you're messing it up. You start freaking out because you're going, I did what I could. You need to help me now. I'm doing all this work. You got to do the final part. I can't catch the ball too. right? But now maybe you get your contract, John, and at least now, okay, I'm solidified here. If I can just stay within my pocket of myself and keep doing what I'm doing here, I'm rock solid moving forward. And maybe that gives him a little bit more comfortable feelings with how, being able to move on in that manner when those plays come up like that. Because I would be that way too, wouldn't you, John? You wouldn't waiting 10 years to have that starting spot, and then you get out there and you'll have these moments where the officials are giving you a jackass call, or, like I said, your receiver doesn't make the route adjustment. You're just like, can someone work with me here? I'm doing everything I can. But I love it, man. I love it. Of all the things to pick that I would love to, if I had to pick, like, give me one thing about a player that you have to get, that you got to solve. You don't get the perfect player. You got to pick one failing thing that you got to fix in him. And you tell me temper. I feel like this John with DK Metcalf too, like with how passionate he is and how hard he goes, and sometimes getting those flags and stuff. I'm one of those guys that doesn't really get dissuaded by it, because you kind of need that on the football field. It's an emotional game. You're trying to whoop another grown man's butt. You're going to have to bring a certain mentality to get that done, whether you're a quarterback, a receiver, or a linebacker. And I kind of like it. And it's that old axiom. I'd rather tell him to slow down than to have to tell him to speed up. Yeah. But John, thank you for the $20 donation, man. All the donations you do, man. All your support. I really, really do appreciate it. Megan says, I still can't get my head around the Russ extension before he even played again for Denver. Yeah, that's Mark Rodgers, Megan. Rodgers is a very aggressive agent in football. He doesn't play by the old same rules of other agents, because he doesn't have to worry about burning bridges or pissing people off, because he has no other NFL clients. So he can burn every single bridge along every single stop that Russ has and not have a care in the world. The guy's a baseball agent. And so he came into Denver and he said, Denver, get this deal done with us now. We expect this to get negotiated and done. You want him to come there. And they probably got him to agree to this stuff kind of in principle before he even arrived to get the trade facilitated. I'm sure Russ used that to his advantage. But it's a dumb deal. You're not wrong on that. The bottom line on that is that, that part is true. Megan says, this may make me sound better, but I'm truly enjoying watching Russ crash and burn. I'm not going to begrudge any fans that come to that state of things. The ending and the way he left and the manner by which he left is not one to celebrate. And if you're going to have an athlete ding his legacy on his way out the door, the steps that Russ took are going to align very closely to what you would see in other situations. Did he make it completely ugly and just, go scorched earth on the Seahawks? No, he didn't do that. But he also came pretty close. He threw the gasoline on the fields. He lit the match. Maybe he didn't take it to it, but he came very close. John says, Brandon, tax things over. I'll do my share on the cap if you think it's something people want to see. I think, John, we just got to prepare a way to show it to people in a way that can be understandable, but I got to find a way of presenting it with a riveting angle as much as we can. But the goal is too, with it, John, I think it does as much to also keep me up on the P's and Q's of this stuff, to look at this and study this now, because these are the questions that have to be a little bit at as much at the forefront of, does this player fit into this defense? Can we go get that player? And you got to kind of at times start with the cap before you can get to the hot stove league of things and being like, ooh, I want that guy. Yeah, where's the cap? What can you do with the cap? Do you want to do anything with the cap? Should the cap just be where it's at? Should we just write it out? And I think these things are very important, because football's got the hard cap, unlike other sports where it's all locked in and you can do some things creatively to get around it, but you are costing yourself down the road, and you need to be very careful when you do that, if you do that, because of the price that you have to pay when the bill does come due, because it will compound, as the Rams are learning. John says, Geno is setting a new way to pull QBs into the league. I hope he is, John, because the further we can get away from the diva level era of quarterbacks in this, the better for the sport. It is a team game, and not just a team game. This isn't baseball or basketball. This is 55 men and practice squad players. There's so many involved with helping a team out to get better and improve and to have production on the field game day. to set any one player out ahead of anybody else. I don't care if it's a guy that's touching the ball all the time like they are. It still, to me, just doesn't add up right at the end of the day. It doesn't add up right, too, because there is no Superman, really. There's your Patrick Mahomes and Burrow types that come very close in that range. But, even when Mahomes was struggling with his offensive line, right, in that Super Bowl where they got to the Super Bowl, but he couldn't go win a Super Bowl when he didn't have the line right. Everybody needs their help. Even the best of the best. They're the best of the best. Megan says, I have said it before, but you can tell how the 12s feel about Russ. As I was at the Lumen Pro shop after he left, and there was a shop full of 12s walking past a rack of his jerseys that were 75% off. It's true. I went into the Spokane Mall here about 2 weeks ago looking for some Mariner gear, actually, and they had a whole rack of Russell jerseys just still sitting there. On sale. Definitely on sale, too, as well. Thank you, John, for another $20 donation. Woo! Let's go. Yeah. John, you're awesome, brother. He says, look out, Brandon. The star is back. Let's go. Let's go. No more tax time. No more tax time. It's good to have you back in the house, John. Can't let the IRS man get you down. But thank you for that donation, brother. Appreciate you. Pumpkin is the star. We were debating this last night. I'm definitely her Andy Richter. I'm her Ed McMahon. That's how this works. That's the pecking order of this one. Tom Eden says, Russ' career reminds me of that scene in Varsity Blues where John Voight runs out of the locker room and nobody follows him. It's sad. I want him to end as a great quarterback. Credulity issues now, though. Yeah, I mean, I get where like someone Megan comes from, or other folks I've heard that have given the same kind of sentiments to me as far as their view of Russ. And there's a wide differentiation of opinion in Seahawks fandom as far as their view of Russ, no doubt about that. But I think you're right. It is a little bit more of this feeling of you had some people that would follow you, but you didn't get the whole locker room to follow you. And maybe it's a hard task to pull off in this modern age with the different personalities and social media and the cliques that develop in locker rooms. But one thing is for sure, quarterbacks historically, be it a Joe Montana, be it a Troy Aikman, be it a Brett Favre, go through the line of quarterbacks, Peyton Manning, these guys, were accepted by the whole locker room. They did have everybody in knowing there was no question about their leadership, no question about their level of commitment, no question about their level of, in regards to Russ especially, the responsibility, right? Taking ownership for when it doesn't go right, for when you are bad, that your stuff does stink, that you do not walk on water. And I think that is a good point, Tommy, and that's something that's where it ended up landing at. I don't know if it was that way with Russ throughout his whole time here, but it certainly is where it ended up by at the end. Megan says, Geno was upset with the ref's call when Pete did the calm down signal beat. That's right. Yeah, he was mad at the refs. It wasn't Carroll. But Carroll was just chilling him. Megan says Pete was just as upset as Geno, but when he saw how riled Geno was, he snapped too and calmed him down. He did. It was a great moment between coach and player. It was just a wonderful moment from last year. One of my favorites, actually. Especially because that next throw that Geno made was not an easy throw. He's 3rd and 9. Defense knows you're trying to throw it to the sticks, and he's got to laser beam it in there to Tyler Lockett. John says, hey, Brandon, I got to take off, but I have to say your thoughts on Geno are so perfect. I'm impressed, pal. Thank you, John. I'm excited for this man, and it's truly where I'm at with him, giving this a lot of thought and just kind of studying him a bit this offseason, seeing how he was going to move, how he was going to act, how he was going to talk. And I just kept coming back around to just how impressed I've been. And I know we're relating to this Russ, but we've got to relate this to Russ because it is so different from what we saw from Russ prior and what we've seen from the position in a long time. And it gets me really excited about the potential of this upcoming season, John, and into the future, because I think we got the right guy at the helm in so many different ways. Physically able to do it, Mentally able to do it, off the field able to do it, leadership able to do it. Everything that you want in that checkbox for your quarterback to accomplish, he's got. And it's going to help us out, man. You have yourself a great night, though. It's good to have you back in the fold, brother. John Holland says, I do appreciate Russ's time with Seattle. He helped us win a Super Bowl and holds most of the passing records. However, over time, he just came off as phony or shallow. It was time for him to move on. It was indeed, John. And I feel the way you feel about it as well, where there is this bit of, you came off the end, that is a part of your legacy here. But the Super Bowl wins are also part of your legacy. The magical moments are also part of your legacy. The great comeback wins are also part of your legacy. The scrambling around and creating time for your guys to get open is part of your legacy. I mean, it's all there. It all is, the good and the bad. And someday it'll make a hella 30 for 30 ESPN series or whatever. It'll be a hell of a show at that point. But he is all those things. It's kind of the nature of the human condition too, where we're all a little imperfect in our own ways. But yeah, it's a good way of putting it, John. And I find myself in the same place. Megan says, okay, I'm heading out for the Calder Cup final. Brilliant as always. And I'll talk to you on Sunday. Thank you, Megan. Appreciate you. You have yourself a great night. See you soon. Be back on Sunday. Nicholas says, DK be slapping down full-grown men, making them concussed. I loved it. I've been thinking about Nicholas doing a video of DK hurting, where he's hurting people. He's got a couple of hits. He did one to, I think it was the Rams safety last year who tried to hit him on one of those kill shots over the middle, where normally safeties hit those receivers and they go, ow. And instead, when he does it, like we saw again in the Niner game a couple of years ago, the other guy ends up going, ow. And DK just gets up and just kind of flexes, Tommy says, I have this feeling that our offense is going to be on the KC Bengals kind of talent level next year. We definitely have the talent now, and we got a motivated youth. It's like the Legion of Boom, but offense, IMO. I agree. I mentioned, Tommy, you get 3 points more, you're already in top 5 with just 3 more points a game next year. If you improve upon last year by 3 points a game, you will be a top 5 offense from a scoring standpoint. Who's to say you couldn't go more beyond that? Who's to say you couldn't get better by 5 points, by 6 points? Now we're starting to talk about it being the best, highest scoring offense in all of the NFL. And I agree with you. I think it's certainly well within reach at this point. Feasible reach. Nicholas says, Geno can break that clown's records. Nobody's going to buy that nonsense, Brandon. We don't like that guy. Tommy says, it's coming to the point where we might need to have a quarterback cap. Not just a salary cap. It's ridiculous, and it makes it to where teams hold on to bad quarterbacks because of money instead of drafting young ones. Agreed. It's gotten out of control. It's just something that, much like Russ's ego, you can almost chart Russ's climb in ego and the quarterback's salaries going into uncontrollable, ridiculous places. Not that he had impact on it directly, but they both have been in parallel with each other. And it is dumb at this point. It's unnecessary. It's really not the way it should be. This stuff should be more locked in to where we've gotten to a point where one position is more than doubling the next other positions on rosters as far as what they're making. That's not right. It's not right, especially with the quarterbacks is how protected they are, especially with how long their careers are, how long they can play into versus other positions in this league that have such short shelf lives. The league would be smart. Problem here is that the quarterbacks carry so much sway with the CBA stuff and the union stuff that they've got the power. For whatever reason, there's only 32 of them, but, high and mighty on this one, I guess. It's also not like the union to restrict itself with salaries in any ways, even if it's to help out other union members. Nicholas, do it, Brandon. I'd love it. Brian is back to 12s, had to feed the Mariners. What'd I miss? Oh, you missed nothing. We're just talking a little bit about the Geno thing. We're probably going to wrap it up here soon. I'm going to kind of hope on these to keep these kind of right around this hour and a half-ish time period so we can get more of these going, because the hope will be here to kind of get this as as not only just a Thursday thing, but to try to, especially as we start getting the season, expand this out into more of kind of almost a daily show thing for you guys. That's going to be the hope as I kind of get going forward on this one. So we'll see if I can pull it off this year, but that's going to be kind of the goal with doing the membership only benefit stuff, eventually getting to this into being a daily kind of thing, an actual daily thing. John Holland, thank you for the $10 donation, finishing us up right. Got him rolling a little bit. Thank you, man. And appreciate you jumping in and checking out the channel tonight, being part of the stream here. We've had some good turnouts here for being a members only channel on this, so I'd love to see you guys jumping in. We'll be keeping this going. Every Thursday, 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And as we get into training camp, we'll go a little bit more. I'll probably be doing some surprise shows with you guys on this stuff too. So keep that membership going. Keep yourself a member. If you're gifted a membership, keep it up and running because I'm going to make it worth your while. We're going to be definitely getting more and more and more of these shows coming up. So John Holland, thank you for that $10 donation, man. I really do appreciate it. Very awesome of you to do so. And thank you for being a member of the channel. Megan, you have yourself a good night. Good luck on the Calder Cup finals. Kind of a tough, doesn't roll off the tongue. Calder Cup probably rolls off the tongue easier in Australia, but on the American mouth, it doesn't come off smooth and steady there. Tom Eden says, have you thought about multicasting on the platforms, Kick, Twitter, etc.? Might be a way to grow some more. In checking with some of the other content creators out there, the thing that they've tended to find with Twitter, and I found this as well, Tommy, is that there's a surprising lack of overlap going on between Twitter and YouTube. And so one does not necessarily carry over to the other as far as growth. And if you get views over onto Twitter, it's not been monetized up at this point. So there's not really any, sort of impetus to go over there and to post videos in that way. But I'm hearing that they're going to start to monetize stuff over there. So if they do that, I'll maybe start to do a little bit more with that. I think like something like Rumble as a backup channel would be smart to have for the channel, just in case anything ever to happen to the main YouTube one, that we could go as that as a fallback plan. So that's certainly something that I think I'm eventually going to start trying to get going onto that. But it'd be probably smart to multicast, even out to Facebook too. Go through all those different ones. And there's a little one you can do it on this platform, but you got to spend a good amount of money to be able to broadcast out to each one. I've been kind of waiting until, I really wanted to utilize and jump that forward. And it's also because just not sure about what I hear from other people about the overlap, that you broadcast these places, but you're just going to those places. You're not getting something that then goes over to YouTube and subscribes up. They're just watching you from Facebook or they're just watching you from Twitter. I guess they could follow you on Twitter. That'd be one way, but I don't know. I'm not very active on Twitter. I'm bad about that. Megan says, let's go to Coachella Valley, Kraken's AHL team. Let's go Coachella Valley. That's Kraken's AHL team. Okay. Coachella Valley. I didn't know that. Where is Coachella Valley? Megan says, I'm worried you're working too hard, B. No, not at all, Megan. I'm definitely working on the channel right now 24/7, but it's what I love to do on this. And I'm not pressured by it. I'm not pressured because of the support that I get on the channel where I know we're going to make what we're going to make and I can sustain myself and just, keep working on the videos. But it's fun. I mean, today I got up and I started working I'm putting a Chad Brown video together. I've got the elite team for next year video coming together. I got the 3 tight end video that's coming down the track here soon. The UDFA video. So what the hope is that I can get these kind of going and have more kind of I'm just kind of slow roll working on all of them, but then we just kind of consistently keep getting the content pumping because something's always in sort of the chamber, But no, I'm doing good. I'm having a great summer, Megan. I'm going to take a week off. That's the other thing too with this is we got the week in Hawaii. I'll be taking a week off at that point over there. So maybe we'll do a membership channel with the fam and you guys as members can meet my family. I'll do a little IRL YouTube stream from the Hawaiian Islands for you guys on that one as a little bump. If you guys are digging it. But no, I'm doing great, Megan. I'm all good. And I wouldn't burn myself out. It's always something I got an eye on with the channel here is that I'm never going to push it too hard to where that's going to happen. This year it's a lot better, Megan, because I'm not having to do as much side work, where the channel would take 50, 60 hours and then you got to put another 40 hours in somewhere else. I'm not having to do that. So I can put just the 70, 80 hours into the channel every week. And it feels like I'm getting 20 hours off versus what I had last year. So it's actually been like a little bit less in that respect of things. I'm good. Megan says, and the Jim Zorn video. That one's a lot, that's a slow burn, Megan. It's a slow burn video that you got to get just right. You can't sell Jim short. You got to like matriculating the ball up the field. You got to matriculate that video together. Little by little by little by little by little. Oh, I appreciate you being worried, Megan, but I'm all good. I got my kitty cat. I got my channel rolling. About to go out to Hawaii for a week and dip my toes in the sand myself, drink something nice and cold and sweaty. And it's, I'll be back refreshed, revitalized and ready to roll. You know what I mean? We got the sunshine out right now. Everything's right in the world at the moment. You know what I mean? Everything's okay at the world. I know we're almost just about to go to war, but other than that, it's magnificent. Well, we're going to call it on that, folks. Thank you for watching. If you are watching it even on replay, I do appreciate you checking it out. I appreciate you being a member, a patron of the channel, however you are watching or checking this out. These are going to continue. I'm going to continue to amp this up and go along because I think that we're getting big enough that this can help to sustain this channel in many ways by having the members as we do. So thank you guys for that. I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion today. Hit the like button if you're feeling like it. I don't know if this shows up on algos at this point because it is just a member video. So maybe yes or no on that either way. But if you do, I probably help somehow or another. But no matter what, thank you always, as ever, so much for all of your support to this channel. It's amazing. We were speaking about it last night. I probably speak about it too much, but it's because I stand in amazement of it. If you get this kind of support online in the way I do from our community, we've got a fantastic community, both in that support and in just the way you guys think and your brains and the interactions we have on this channel. I could never, ever ask for more, and I never would. This is exactly the ideal for me in so many respects. Thank you for that. This is absolutely a treasure for me. Going to be back again next Thursday. Don't know what we're going to be talking about quite yet. Got a couple ideas for some shows, but we'll see. I will also be back this Sunday, and I think we're going to be talking a little bit about what our NFC West opponents did this past offseason and diving a little bit into that. But until I come back next time, please don't you ever forget